Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing a Hobonichi and Nolty comparison as promised. I picked up these Nolty planners a few weeks ago, partly because they were close to Hobonichi and partly because I wanted just to try them out, but I knew that it would be a good idea to do a comparison between the two because they are so similar. Today I'm going to be comparing 3 Noltys to 2 Hobonichi. So we've got the listy one, which is a vertical layout, and the listy 2, which is a horizontal layout. Both of these are an A5 slim size, which is quite an unusual size I've not really come across before. And then we've got an A5, the number 6322, and this is kind of a hybrid vertical but can really be anything layout. I'm then going to be comparing them to the Hobonichi Weeks, which is a horizontal layout, so obviously similar to the listy 2, and then the cousin, my fave, which is a vertical layout. So I'm kind of going to be comparing this and this to the cousin. I'm going to cover the main points in terms of where to buy, price, things like that, and then I'm going to do a bit of a deep dive into the planner specifically and pick up on any differences in terms of the layouts, the pages, etc. So to kick off and talking about availability and where to buy, the Hobonichi is definitely a lot more ubiquitous. I don't see many people in the Noltys yet, although there are a few more people kind of popping up now using them. Because these are everywhere, you can get them very easily. There's more and more local stockists that I'm seeing every year basically. Amazon UK now sell them. There's a lot of kind of local stockists, so smaller bookshops, station shops, things like that all over the world. There's also quite a big market on Etsy for resellers, just to be able to get hold of some of the more hard to find pieces. There's quite a few limited editions in the week size, for instance, which you can't buy from Hobonichi direct. They're usually Japan only or sold through specific stores. Whereas with the Nolty, I had to purchase this from Amazon Japan. Couldn't really see anywhere else to buy them. Didn't really see anyone on Etsy selling them. I think I saw one listing. So they are a little bit more difficult to get. However, I must say, Amazon Japan, fantastic to use, really quick delivery. You can't use your current Amazon account, you have to set up a new one. But like I say, it's really easy to do. You pay the custom fees up front. The shipping is really reasonable. I think in comparison to the Hobonichi store, it's a lot cheaper. And actually you can get Hobonichi on Amazon Japan. And I would recommend, if you are only buying a book or something, get it from Amazon Japan. You'll save yourself a decent amount of money. If you're buying accessories and pouches and things like that, you'll have to order from Hobonichi direct because they tend not to sell many of the accessories on Amazon Japan. But yeah, if it's just books, go for Amazon Japan. I guess related to availability is accessories. So this, for example, beautiful cork Hobonichi Weeks cover, made for the weeks. Purchase this on Etsy. There's a lot of people making covers specifically for the Hobonichi, lots of accessories, obviously lots of sticker makers making sticker kits. You don't really get that for the Nolty. When it comes to covers, obviously this is an A5 size, so this Moterm, for instance, would fit this. These is an A5 slim. Can't say I've seen very many covers out there in that size. There's probably a few, but it's just something to bear in mind if you do like to print up your planner with sticker kits or bespoke covers or accessories. You won't find a huge amount made specifically for these planners. Might not be a deal breaker for you, but it's probably worth a mention just in case. When it comes to price, all of these, so I did a price comparison on Amazon Japan just to make it as fair as possible. So the prices for all 4 of these were actually broadly the same. They were around £13 each before shipping and taxes were included. I decided to do it before shipping and taxes because actually some countries the tax rate might be different and the shipping costs will be different. So just as a clean comparison, about £13 each for each of these. The cousin, £25. So not a huge amount more, but if you are doing something as simple as comparing this to this, this is kind of an extra, almost nearly double. Just something to bear in mind. I've mentioned the shipping with regards to Hobonichi Direct. Moving on to choice of planner. Really easy with Hobonichi. They've got a week size, they've got a cousin size, they've got an A6 size. that's really it for their core range. They've got a couple of what I'd call offshoots. So in the Weeks, for instance, there is a sneaker version, which is slightly smaller but has lots more notes pages in the back. And there's also a mega version, which is the same size, but again has lots of notes. There's day-free versions of the A5 and the A6, which doesn't have any daily pages, but instead just has a load of chunky note pages. But what it misses is the weekly pages in the cousin size. The A6 doesn't have weeklies. So quick kind of tour through that, but the point is there's not a huge amount of variety. There's kind of those 3 styles essentially, and there is a 5-year planner, but I don't really consider that as a planner. To me, that's more of a journal. But you don't have a huge amount of choice. That isn't to say that you can't do a lot with these planners. Certainly they're very flexible in how you use them. You can set them up however you want, use kits, not use kits, whatever you want to do. So I wouldn't say that you're necessarily going to miss out by sticking to this. I mean, I've been in the cousin now for 4 years. I love it. I find I can adapt the layouts as and when. But if you just want something a bit different in terms of the layout, you might find it in a Nolty, just because there are so many. And I will link a blog post in the description that I use to help me find which planners I wanted to buy, because there is so much choice. This is just the tip of the iceberg. I think when I was researching, I found probably at least 20 different styles, which is just insane. There's then different colours, so I think most of these came in at least 3 different colours. The book inside doesn't change, it is just the cover that changes when we talk about colour. But so many different sizes, layouts, colours, the combinations are endless. So definitely take a look at that blog post, and you might actually find a layout that you've been looking for a while and didn't think you'd find, and it might just exist in this. That's definitely a massive plus point for me. With both though, you can get completely creative. I've mentioned it briefly already with the cousin, but this, for instance, there's somebody that I follow on Instagram who she actually uses this layout very differently to me. So I just use it as a normal kind of vertical layout, but she kind of chunks out these bottom bits and kind of turns them into like quadrants for different things. And yeah, there's just so many different ways to plan in them. The possibilities are endless, really. This is obviously I guess the most obvious one in terms of being able to do what you want with them. You could turn this into a horizontal layout if you wanted. You could just use this for notes. So this is what I use for work, and basically all of this is notes, and then my day specific things only live in the top. So with both of them, definitely can get creative in terms of how you use them. But if you are wanting something ready to go that you don't have to faff about too much with, take a look at what Nolty has on offer, because you might just find a layout that you really like. When it comes to design, Nolty isn't going to be everybody's cup of tea. I guess I'd call this kind of a professional looking planner. These are PVC covers, very simple, not great I guess from an environmental perspective, because they have got the date, the year on. They do come with the planner. I couldn't see any that you could buy without the planner, in terms of you could buy it without the cover, sorry. So if you're conscious about your plastic use, particularly if you're buying a planner to get rid of at the end of the year because you don't keep your planners, or you don't do any journaling in them or anything like that, not great for the environment. They won't be to everybody's taste, particularly when you compare to the Hobonichi. So the Hobonichi, the cousin, and the A6 comes in, it's quite plain in terms of the outside. But what Hobonichi have is a lot of covers that you can buy. I never buy a Hobonichi cover. I always buy something else in terms of from Etsy, or this is a Moterm currently. Obviously in the Weeks, I've got my cork cover. But in the Weeks, there's lots of different designs available. So let me pull this out. So this is just a really simple fabric, nice aqua blue, mint blue. And they do have, I want to say maybe like 20 different designs for the Weeks, plus some plain colours, some patterns. There's quite a few to choose from. So if you do like your planner to be quite individual, be quite colourful, then you might find you have more luck with the Hobonichi. particularly if you want this kind of style and size, because obviously when we get into the A5 you can just replace the cover like you do with the cousin, so it's not a big deal. But with the A5 Slim you're kind of stuck with this cover. I think the cover that it kind of, the cardboard cover is very plain looking, more plain than the cousin. The cousin I've used before without a cover and it's been fine, whereas this is really plain. Yeah, something to bear in mind. You might say, do you know what, I just need a planner, I don't care how it looks, or I need a planner for work. Hence why this is my planner for work, because it looks very professional, almost boring, but that's fine, I don't mind, it serves a purpose. In terms of layout, so I don't know whether this is a Japanese planner thing or whether I just have happened to buy from two companies that do tend to lay out their planners the same. These planners all start in the same way. So they have what I would call a yearly overview page. So you've got a year at a glance. I don't find these pages particularly functional, just because there's not a huge amount you can do with them, which is why I have a sticker on mine that just gives me this note page or note area. With the listy, it actually comes with this box in the A5, very plain, not much you can do with that. They then all have year at a glance, although in the Hobonichi it's 6 months at a glance because it's spread over 2. And it's no different in the Nolty. And the one thing to call out with these is in the Hobonichi you get space at the top and bottom. It's the same in the weeks as well, actually. You get kind of space to really make these pages your own, I guess is how I would call it. So I'm using it very differently in here. I'm using this as a weight log, and this will hopefully be a graph at the end of the year showing how my weight has hopefully gone down and not up. In the listy, in the Nolty, you don't really have that flexibility because it literally is a calendar. Perish the thought of using a calendar as a calendar, but from what I can kind of see and my weeks playing in this, it is pretty functional as a calendar and not much more, which actually might be perfect for you. And you might love the idea of actually seeing a year completely at a glance and being able just to plot out everything important, and you can just see, you know, might be really good if you're trying to plot when you can go on holiday, because you can plot out your whole year and then go, okay, July's actually looking really good, let's get 2 weeks booked off in there. Different people will use things different ways, but for me, I do like this layout of the cousin and the weeks, but for you, you might just want a calendar. Then we go on to monthly pages, and again, very similar in terms of format and layout across all of them. Boxes, sidebar, space at the bottom. The only thing to point out is on this A5, I hate it because it's plain paper with lines. No idea why that decision has been made, because the rest of the planner is all grid, but for some reason this is plain and lined. Only difference really, the rest of it is the same, sidebar, bottom. Moving on to weeklies. So I've already kind of briefly shown the differences here. So this listy one to me is like a baby cousin in terms of the weeklies. You have nice vertical, it's timed, you've got a sidebar space. The big difference here is the timings on the listy one only go from 7 AM till 10 PM, whereas the cousin is pretty much 24 hours. You then have space top and bottom for additional things. Like I said, some people use this space as kind of free space and create quadrants, kind of this week, next week, other things. I really love the flexibility of that. You can do that in the cousin, and I do that in the cousin. I very rarely use the timed section, as you can see. Just fill it with stickers. But I just like the fact that this kind of has this what I'd call free area. Also, because I only work 9 to 5, I'm very rarely going to have scheduling outside of those times, whereas if you work shifts, for instance, You might love the cousin because it actually allows you to be able to plot in shifts. I see a lot of people complaining about timed planners not actually giving the full time, which means that if you work nights or have a shift pattern working from 12 till 9, your planner might stop at 7. So I completely get that frustration. Whereas I really like this because it does work for me. The only thing that I would say is obviously because this is a smaller version of the cousin, it is very narrow. If you've got large handwriting, you might struggle to fit everything. So it tends to be kind of a word a line for me, which isn't ideal. And if you do have huge handwriting, you probably will get a little bit frustrated with it. Just a note on this, so I obviously have cousin size sticker kits. There's no sticker kits for the Nolty that I can see, but I have found that Weeks size kits actually work really nicely. So the boxes are a little bit wider, but some of these fit. So this is one of my own kits from the shop. But yeah, just a flag. There are no specific kits, but you can probably make things work, particularly in this one. This, as I've mentioned a couple of times, there's a lot of freedom in terms of how you use this. You can just create vertical columns and then it does just become a cousin, but without the timings. So if you love the cousin but don't like the timings and find they get in the way or just find them a bit distracting, you might prefer this because you can just create columns. They are, yeah, pretty much exactly the same size. So cousin sticker kits will probably actually fit in here quite nicely. I haven't tested it because this is a work planner, so I don't sticker it up, but this could be a really good alternative if for some reason you don't like the cousin. While we're talking weeklies, let's talk Listy 2 and the horizontal. So very similar to the weeks, and I kind of considered this. If you love the weeks and you love the layout of the weeks but it's just a little bit too small for you, the Listy 2 is probably perfect because it just gives you that space without necessarily being huge. A couple of key differences that I really like about the Listy 2. It's got timings, so it doesn't have the full day like the other one, but it does have most of the day, so you can actually turn this into a nice timed section and then have the rest for to-dos or whatever. It's also got grid on both sides, whereas the weeks is plain on this side, which if you're not using stickers, it's fine because you can see the lines through, whereas as soon as you start putting stickers in, I found that I wasn't able to see the lines and my handwriting was just hideous. I need lines or grids or something just to write against. There's also kind of pretty much no wasted space on these pages, whereas there's the top there, but in the weeks you've obviously got this bottom bit, which does limit how much space you've got. It's only a minor thing, it doesn't bother me. I've been using weeks for years and it's never kind of got in the way, but it is just something to flag that most of the page, aside from kind of this area as well, is being utilised. Like I say, only a small thing, but I noticed it. And that's kind of it in terms of the differences there. The big difference when it comes to the rest of the planner in terms of the back is the daily pages. So the cousin has a daily page for, well, every day, otherwise it would be a really terrible daily planner. In the Nolty, they don't. So the ones that I picked up just have notes pages at the back, which might be perfect for you, but they don't have a huge amount. So I don't think I counted how many were in here, but I think it's probably like 60 or 80. So if you like to use like a bit of a bullet journal hybrid and use the back pages as kind of like rapid logging and dailies, you will be able to use it if you don't need a page to a day, basically. Or if you just want kind of random scratch paper or note pages, things like that, yep, absolutely perfect. This will work for you. Equally, if you love the cousin but don't feel the daily pages or don't feel like you've used them enough, this might be perfect for you. You might be able to utilise this better and not feel like you're staring at a load of empty pages. And because they're not dated as well, you can kind of use them as and when. I tend to use my daily pages sometimes for daily journaling, but most of the time it's for notes and collections, so I kind of ignore the dates most of the time. The dates are only really handy for the indexing at the front. This is the same in the listies, so you get notes pages in here. Very similar format, although interestingly there's a heading in this one, whereas this is just complete grid paper, blank, whereas in this you've got heading and then a few notches to kind of turn this into more graph paper. There's only about 40 pages, I think, in both of these listies. So in comparison to the weeks, which I think has, yeah, it's got like 70. So if you're someone who uses all the notes pages in the weeks, you might struggle with a listy. However, the pages are bigger, so depending on how you use those pages, you might find it's comparable. If you use the mega weeks or a sneaker weeks, you definitely won't have enough note pages in a listing. In terms of layout, that's, I apologise, I realise that I keep saying in terms of, I need to find some new words and phrases. But that's it when we talk layout. There's only a few bits really that I wanted to kind of cover from here on in. First one is, when I find it, pen tests. So the Hobonichi has Tomorrow River paper. It's very, very thin, but it's very, very good. So you can use pretty much any kind of pen on here and it won't bleed through. Should have filmed this before I stuck the stickers on. But yeah, there's no bleed through. There is just some ghosting. You can even use watercolour pen or watercolour paints rather. It deals well. The only thing to really flag about Tomorrow River paper is the drying time on some pens can cause a problem. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see this, but there is some ink here from the Pilot Juice. So a wide nib gel pen does kick out a little bit too much ink and sometimes will never really feel, yeah, so I did this pen test page, you probably can't see that, but I've just touched that and got ink all over my finger. I wrote this pen test page 2 days ago, so if you love gel pens, you're going to be looking at needing 0.4 max, because anything else just doesn't really seem to dry. I do use the Coletto in my weeks, you saw it in the cover. I've just learned to adapt to it, leave things to dry, use a pencil board just to make sure it doesn't smear, and also use smaller refills, but just something to flag with that paper. We're going to ignore all of this ink because this is terrible ink, hated it, I ordered a sample, will not be ordering a full size. In the Nolty, so I haven't been able to get to the bottom of what this paper is in terms of the GSM. All I know is it's cream, very, very cream, so you can see the massive difference. It's thick, it's smooth, but it works really well with all of the pens I've tried to use. Again, no ghosting, no bleeding, but lots of ghosting. And the only thing I would say is because of this, I think it's the smoothness of the paper, I don't find that I like the fountain pens as much. I don't know whether it's because the ink just doesn't sink into the page. I don't even know if that's a thing, but when I compare kind of, this is my most used fountain pen, I do just find it looks better. It could just be the colour of the page, but there is just something about fountain pens, I do prefer them in here. I tend not to use them in this. I tend to use kind of my Hobonichi pen or gel pens because there's no issue with the gel pens drying, so same test, no ink. Next, let's talk binding. There is a difference in the binding between these two. I don't know a huge amount about binding and technical terms. All I know is that Hobonichi tends to lay flat without much hassle, and the Nolties do take a bit more work. It's not too bad in the A5, but when we get to the A5 Slim, it's, yeah, it needs a bit of work. And as this is a planner, particularly this one, so this lives on my desk in kind of a box thing, and I just pull it out as and when I need to jot things down because this is my messy pre-planner. It kind of bugs me that when I take it out, I can't just write in it. I have to kind of give it a good break in first, because even if you've broken in a page, when you close it again and put it away, the next time you go and open it, you have to do the same process again. It's only minor and it probably won't bother a lot of people, but I'm a bit of a stickler when it comes to lay flat. I was the same about my Filofaxes. I'll only buy Filofaxes that I know will lay flat because I know they'll annoy me. So I just wanted to flag it in case you're like me. Something I forgot to mention about the paper, which again could just be a me thing, But because the Tomorrow River paper is so thin, I do have to be really gentle with it. I do find that, I mean, I can see a bend there, that if I flick too harshly or I put washi tape down wrong and have to pull it up, even pulling off these Avery tabs, you can kind of bend and slightly damage the paper. Not going to be an issue for most of you, but if you're a bit of a perfectionist like me and don't like to kind of have crinkled pages or bends or anything like that, this will be a bit of a learning curve. Whereas this, in the Nolty, because the paper's so thick, and that's part of the reason why I wanted it for work, because I'm forever flicking between pages, because the notes are for meeting notes and then the weekly pages are for my plans, so I'm always flicking, and I need some hard wearing paper that I can just kind of rifle through and not worry about it getting damaged, because it hasn't at all. Again, might just be a me thing, but worth flagging for definite. So I think that's pretty much it in terms of the comparisons and things that I wanted to talk about. Hopefully that's helped you see how they compare, the good points, the bad points, and hopefully if you have been kind of debating between the two, this has helped. Like I say, if you do have any questions, please just leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to answer. I'll leave any links of anything that I've talked about, and hopefully this has been helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Please like and subscribe, and I will see you again soon. Bye.